No, it was all happening last night. Got myself into a bit of a frenzy with the mooted deal, but did
I saw.
send some texts around and made some. Mate, well, I'm lying. I sent some texts around. I didn't make any calls. I'm not sure it was ever on the table for Port Adelaide. They just completely said this was never ever happening. So
Yeah, so this is why you're never really sure. And look, all the guys do a great job with the reporting. They're almost all over it too early. So, I mean, you're never sure what to believe. It had so much detail, it looked as though all parties were basically there, subject to some fine print. But if Port never agreed, I'm hearing actually, this is early to get into this, I'm hearing actually it was the board as much as anything at Port Adelaide. So this had gone to board level, and the board might have said, nah, this can't be happening. So essentially it was, if we cut right to the chase right off the top, it was essentially from a Port Adelaide perspective, Lukosius in for a future first, that's probably fair. Richards in for 39. Atkins will come to in a moment for 58. And that meant that Dan Houston was being traded for 13, 29 and 36. And the Power weren't happy with that.
no, and nor should they be. Nor should they be. So I mean, it was an amazing deal for Collingwood. Like if Collingwood could have pulled this off, essentially, future first for Dan Houston and some steak knives, 36, Joe Richards and John Noble. Like, I mean, there's a couple of good players there, but that was an amazing deal for Collingwood.
And a future first. So Collingwood would have given up Noble, Richards, then they would have given up the future first and pick 36 for Houston and 58. I'm not sure. That's a fair bit of capital from the Collingwood.
Well, they would be hoping that future first is well towards the back end if they have a successful year next year. So I mean, that could look like Geelong's pick 17 this year.
I know, but it's still their first pick. And I know you can get another one in.
It's a risk, but I thought it was a great deal for Collingwood. I thought it was solid for Gold Coast as well. They did what they needed to do, getting $400,000 from Rory Atkins, who I didn't even know was still on an AFL list off their books.
Can we just, in the interest of cutting to the chase, like what's going on there? Why would Port Adelaide, I know they miss Perryman and Cumming and Houston's going to go and they might need some depth across halfback, but Rory Atkins, like, what?
Yeah, so I was racking my brain on this and I was like, why Rory Atkins? And the only thing I thought was, well, maybe you get Lukosius cheaper. But so I was thinking Port Adelaide would get Lukosius, Atkins, Richards, and pick 13 and only give Houston. But then when I read that they were giving their future first pick as well, I was like, no way. I was so outraged by it. So I just couldn't work it out. I still can't work out Rory Atkins other than, honestly, sample depth, or I couldn't work it out. So that it was doing my head in, and I was sitting there going, "This is disaster. What are they doing?" And I was, I was getting quite upset, and I felt like I needed to send some texts around to people at the club and just say, "What are you doing?" Like, and they were just like, "What are you talking about? This is never happening." Like this was, so they were just like flat batting it away, going as if we would do this deal. So I mean, that's the hard thing when you are reporting on things like this, because Tom may have had the Collingwood side and the Gold Coast side, or the agent side who would put this deal together. I don't know what it was, but without having Port Adelaide's sign off, which I think they did say in the deal, it was in the report, it was subject to Port Adelaide doing this deal, but they are saying it was never going to happen. So, I mean, we'll get into this early, but the only option for Port Adelaide now with Dan Houston, the only option is to say to him, you're not going to Collingwood. Like, it's too hard to get this deal done. Collingwood aren't offering enough. They don't have enough assets. So, if you want to go, the only place you're going is North Melbourne. And if they can come up with a deal, which we think they can, that will satisfy us for you, and we just start dealing with them, or you're coming back and playing with us. That's the only two options they've got. Remove Carlton, remove Collingwood, and deal with North Melbourne if Dan Houston wants to go. So that's what I'd be saying to him right now. Dan, look, we've got 2 days to work this out, but you're only going to North. It's too difficult to get you to Collingwood. And if you don't want to go there, then we're really happy to have you back.
Yeah, so the Roos are like those people in the movies, the old movies, holding the big safety net at the bottom of the skyscraper, waiting to catch the falling person. They've got the best offer for Port Adelaide and also the best offer for Houston. They've also got the best offer for Gold Coast pick 13, which they've had a real good crack at as well. They've got their future first on offer and something else really pointy there as well. I'm told that's easily the best deal for 13. They can pay Dan Houston the most money. The only problem is
13's not going to cut it either. Like 13 for Dan Houston once the bids come is going to push. No,
it wouldn't be on its own.
Have to be something else reasonably significant, because
there's only There's only one problem with it, though, is that Dan Houston, we keep hearing, doesn't want to play for North Melbourne.
So that's what I'm saying. So you'll say to Dan, look, Dan, we tried, mate, but you're contracted here. If you want to go home and that's important to you, you're playing for North Melbourne. If not, you're staying with us for the next 4 years. And then that's the two options. You've got to get a little bit tough here. Remove Collingwood, too hard to deal with, not offering enough. You take Gold Coast out of it and you deal with Gold Coast separately for Lukosius. And then you deal with North. I mean, that's the two options that he's got. He's contracted to Port Adelaide. I see that Rioli's getting 6 and 23, and Houston's getting 13 and some steak knives. It just makes absolutely no sense. So I think Port Adelaide have got to toughen up a little bit here and be a bit firmer with Dan and give him those two options and those two options only.
So when this trade, and it's a 3-club, 5-player, multi-pick trade, sort of came to fruition late yesterday, your initial
Who's
reply
the architect of this?
Rory Atkins is still on a list, pass. Then you went with Port's 37th Sandful flag is on hold. Phew, when it looked as though it wasn't going ahead. And then somewhere and somehow Port fans will blame this on Ken. And then did you go to sleep? No, you had another crack.
The last one was the Sandful
the Ken
flags.
one. All right. I was all out of whack here.
Yeah.
I was all out of whack. Your initial one was Port trading to try and win the Sandful premiership.
Well, that's what it looked like when you're looking at it and going, okay, we're getting Joe Richards. So I don't know if Joe Richards can play. Does anyone? Like we're not certain Joe Richards can play. He may just be a good Sandful player. And when you're looking at Rory Atkins and Jack Lukosius, who I don't mind, but he finished the year playing VFL. Well, there's 3 pretty handy players for your Sandful side. But how does it help the AFL side when you're losing a dual All-Australian? And I read that Dan Rioli, who doesn't tie up Dan Houston's bootlaces, is getting 6 and 23. I'm like, what is Port Adelaide doing? I know it's different, and Richmond are just right place at the right time, dealing with Gold Coast who treat first-round draft picks like they're lollies on Halloween. Like, it's crazy what they're doing, but that's separate. You cannot be letting Dan Houston go for 13 and some steak knives. You can't let it happen. So time to get a little bit tougher with Dan and his management. But just on this, I mean, this is a complicated deal, Sammy.
Yeah.
And I mean, Collingwood will be really flat that it's fallen over. Gold Coast will be really flat. Who's orchestrating this? Who's the architect behind this?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if anyone put their hand up and say they're the architect when there's 3 clubs involved. I mean, I imagine it just goes around the merry-go-round, and there's probably been 100 iterations of
Who's
it by
Houston's
now.
agent? That's Connor's
That's
group,
the
isn't it?
Connors. That's Nick Geeshan.
Yeah. And
Well, so Port would have been under enormous pressure yesterday from all sides to do this deal. They were under pressure from Houston's management. They were under pressure from Collingwood. They would have been under pressure from Gold Coast. And it would have been surrounding Jason Cripps and that Port Adelaide board. And in the end, well, what you're saying is they were never at the table with it. And I'm told it went all the way to the very top. And they said, no, we're not doing this deal. So while we've been talking about it and trying to work Rory Atkins out, a former player's been texting him. He does fancy himself as a bit of a list manager, it's fair to say. He says, it's a salary dump. Get your head in the game. And I said, but Port still have to take him.
That's what's hard.
I said that, but Port still have to take him. That's what's hard to understand. And he replied, because in 12 months' time, they delist him and get 450,000 cap space. So they can have that cap space now by not taking him.
That's the dumbest reason I've ever heard. That guy's got no idea.
It's American. Get with the game.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, we'll just take an average player and pay him 400 grand. So in 12 months' time, we get that off our books. It makes no sense. The only way it makes sense is if you do what Geelong did with Bose. Yeah, that's a salary dump, but there's a reason.
Attached to
there's
something.
a reason to do that because you get picked. So the Atkins deal.
But this wasn't favourable to Port Adelaide.
It doesn't give Port Adelaide anything. That's what I was saying. I sort of was going, okay, well, they're taking Atkins' contract so that they get a better deal with Lukosius. So Lukosius and Atkins come in at a cheaper rate because they're doing Gold Coast a favour and taking Atkins, but they're not. They're still giving up their future first. And who knows where Port Adelaide are going to finish late. Like, it's viable they finish bottom 6, Port Adelaide. So that the Lukosius future first doesn't look good at all. There's just no reason to take on Atkins other than if you think there's a role for him to play on the wing. Maybe Travis Boak's 36 and he's played that wing role and you're not certain. I mean, there is a deficiency on their side on their wing, but Rory Atkins, I could find you 7 delisted free agents that are better than Rory Atkins. So I don't get it. But is there a chance, Sammy, is there a chance that Port Adelaide wanted this floated publicly before even thinking about signing off to see the
Oh,
reaction.
a
To see they flew the kite here.
A temperature check.
To see the reaction
Surely
from
not,
the fans.
No, surely not.
Whoa.
Surely they haven't got time to be mucking around with that stuff. Surely they are credentialed enough to know what is a good and what is not a good deal without
This is not a good deal.
going to the masses.
The pick swap in relation to Carlton and West Coast for that big three on the cards. West Coast fans losing their minds about that, considering they did split a pick a couple of years ago, which was Harry Sheasel for Ginbey and Hewitt, which isn't going to work out well for them. And they're looking to do that again, but passing one of those picks on to Richmond for Baker. Yeah, interesting move.
It's going to happen. Morning, Kane. Please tee off on the Eagles, hoping somehow they hear from someone how ridiculous this deal concerning pick 3 is. Owie should not be moving the needle on this. Please save us.
It's a bit similar to, the Joe Richards and Atkins. Owie's is...
Owie's isn't moving the needle on it. It's a mechanism to get Baker in if you're going to pin it on any player.
Yeah, but I'm not sure they need to be trading pick 3 to unlock Baker. Like, the Baker they can just get for...
How?
For not a whole lot. Put him through the draft. What are we doing here? Giving
the
up
old draft.
Pick 3 but when you finish towards the bottom and you can get him for free, I just don't understand why they would even entertain splitting pick 3 for that just to get Liam Baker. He's he's a nice to have, but he's not the rebuild type of player that West Coast need. They need to be getting as many top 10 draft picks as they possibly can to start rebuilding this club like they should have done 3 years ago. So that's strange. But just on your stuff on Port Adelaide's board overruling this trade, if that's accurate, and it probably is, that's what boards are there for, right?
100%.
Like that is exactly what the Melbourne board should have done when the Clayton Oliver contract went to them and Brad Green was sitting on the board now. And this is what we're thinking of playing a player who's been giving us a few headaches off the field. Yep, highly talented, but this is the number. This is what we're going to sign him for. And the board looks at it. Hey, you reckon they're that smart? This is what board should do. And if West Coast fans are losing their mind over this, should go to the West Coast board, and that should sit in front of them. They should assess it and say, nah, we're knocking this back. It's not. That is what boards should be doing. So if Port Adelaide's board did act like that last night, well done. And there's some other clubs' boards that shouldn't be on holidays right now, wherever they may be. Those board members, they should be sitting down, assessing all the information and going, nah, this is the wrong thing for our footy club to be doing at this time.
Yeah, so Tom Morris is just reporting that deal, he expects it to go through this morning. So on paper, it would look something like Carlton 12, 14 and Owies to West Coast in exchange for 3, and there'd be some other meaningless pick swaps in the back end, but that's essentially what it would do. It would allow West Coast a bit of flexibility to get Liam Baker in, among other things. And I suppose that's where Fremantle came in for. So when it all went down on Friday between Hawthorn and Carlton, Fremantle were emboldened by that. We know they've had 10, 11 and 18 on the table for Shea Bolton and Baker together as a package. Baker just does not want to go to Fremantle. I'm told even the coach of the Fremantle Dockers, Justin Longmuir, tried to resuscitate it or at least get it off the ground on Friday by getting in touch with Liam Baker multiple times to try to, I guess, convince him that the Dockers can be a home for him, but he wasn't buying it. He wants to get to West Coast. I don't know, is there something about homegrown players over there? You grow up barracking for one, you just can't, even as a professional athlete, which is strange, you can't even fathom going back and playing for the other one?
Probably, but I think...
That's hard to believe, isn't it?
It is, but I think probably the cash, as you sort of highlighted yesterday. I mean, every club has to pay like 90-something% of the salary cap. Who are West Coast paying? So the opportunity for Baker just to earn a stack of cash wouldn't be there at Fremantle with their star-studded lineup and Jackson and Darcy and Sarong and Brayshaw and these types of players. Even Brendan Cox got himself a 7-year deal. So they just wouldn't have the room to pay him like West Coast would.
Yeah, indeed. But you got to love coaches increasingly getting on the front foot and picking up the phone and trying to make it happen. So our overnight news wrap, trade up to Continental Tires. That proposed 3-team mega trade we opened the show with today, Port Adelaide, Collingwood and Gold Coast. Had 5 players involved, a handful of picks involved as well, was off, might not have ever been on if Kane Corns is right yesterday from Port Adelaide point of view. So almost back to the drawing board with that this morning. Port not happy at the compensation they were going to get for Dan Houston, among other things. We've spoken about Liam Baker getting to West Coast. They've had the work around there, Liam Baker's management, after Hawthorn struck that deal with Carlton on Friday. Matt Owies is involved, and Cal Toomey also reporting that the Gold Coast Suns are close to locking down the Dan Rioli deal. Now, I'm interested in your thoughts on this. you were scoffing at pick 6. If Cal's right, it'll be 6-23 going to Richmond, and Richmond will give them Dan Rioli and something back.
Yeah, so that was when I lost my mind last week, was after I'd watched Fox Footy and they said 6-23 on the table for Rioli. I said, this is an outrage. Like, the AFL needs to actually step in with this when they want a competition as even as this. And Gold Coast just don't understand the value of picks. Because they've had so many picks over the journey and the
No,
academy.
they do, but they've got a different value of picks.
Yeah, and it's not the right.
Because of the academies and because of where they've been finishing on the ladder.
I think it's, as I said, it's like Halloween and a kid rocks up at your door and there's a big bowl of lollies. Oh, here's pick 6. There you go, son. Here's pick 7. There's another. There's Elijah Hollins. Off you go. He was a.
They've
pick
got
10.
a bigger bowl than other houses.
Yeah, they've gotten more lollies that they feel sick because they've eaten so many lollies that they just hand them out to any other club that wants them. It is ridiculous. Now, after I said that and lost my mind on it, I heard from Gold Coast, and they said pick 23 was never on the table. So we have never put pick 23 on the table. I said, oh, okay, well, my apologies if that's the case. I'm just letting you in behind the curtain here, but this was just my reaction to the report on Fox Footy, which I did say, if this is true, it's an outrage. And they said, well, pick 23 was never on. So now you're telling me, a couple of days after hearing from Gold Coast where they said to me that pick 23 was never on the table, that is going to be in the hands of Richmond.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Well, yeah.
So I'll lose my mind again. They
I got a message from. That must have been Thursday because I got a message from them as well, and
said
it
the
read
same
like
thing?
this. Well, it read like this. It was a bit different. It was all about painting a picture of life at the Sun. So they said, can someone please explain to the world, I'm assuming that's you, that King, Anderson, Rowell and Flanders are all free agents in the next 3 years. Pick 6 won't help us keep them in a 3-year time frame. We've drafted a lot of top-end talent, 4 first-rounders last year. Leo Lombard is a top 10 this year. We aren't selling the farm or seeking the farm because we still get our top 10 selection in Leo Lombard. What we are doing is trying to shore up the next 3 to 4 years as well. So what they're saying is, like that Halloween bowl, there's no use mucking around with more Smarties and Skittles. They want the big jumbo Snickers, okay? And that's Dan Rioli.
He's not a jumbo. I'm telling you, he's not a jumbo Snickers for a start. And I understand all of that. I'm not silly, and I get that. But it's more for me. The AFL needed to come in with an intervention here on this isn't fair for everyone else who would love to get their hands on a pick 6 and 23 for a guy who's just a nice piece of the puzzle to have.
We've had this debate, you and I, about Gold Coast many times. If we're going to get into what's fair and what isn't, then that's another fight. That's a 5-hour program.
Are they going to win now, Gold Coast? So they can be smart Alex and send messages behind the scenes and explain to the world. Are they going to start to win? Like that would be nice. You just said Rowell and Anderson and King and Flanders. Like what do you want? Like Damien Hardwick's 80% of our premiership. There's no ceiling on where finals is a must. When they sacked Stewie Dew, Bob East, I think his name is the chairman. Haven't heard from Bob for a while, but he said, "Look, finals is the expectation." Like, are they actually going to win? With everything that they're doing and the Snickers that they're trying to get right now and giving up pick 6 for Rioli and 23, which they said was never on the table, are they going to win?
Well, that's on them. That's on them.
Be nice.
That's on them.
You got a coach who you think can coach. Like, come on. So West Coast are trading pick 3 for Baker, Owies, and 12. That's what they're doing. Is that correct?
Baker, Owies, and 12. Yeah, that's essentially
for pick 3.
Essentially correct. Yeah, and then they'll use their other pick.
And Carlton, this is one of the all-time trades for the Blues. 12, 14, and Owies for pick 3.
They started with 17. Remember?
This is amazing.
No, they didn't. What did they start with? The Blues. They started with. Yeah, hang on. What did they start with? 14 on its own, didn't they? I can't remember now.
Yeah, no.
I think they started with 14 on its own.
Yep.
And they've worked down from there.
They've worked their way to pick 3, which is the highest pick they've had since Sam Wild. Carlton fans doing cartwheels right now.
It's hard to keep up with what they've had.
I love what they've done, the Blues. I love what they've done this trade period, and I sort of said that from the start.
You love it if they nail the pick, though.
Well,
then you don't love it.
It's pretty hard to stuff up pick 3. I mean, I know it's been done before, but in a draft that they tell me is a super draft, pretty hard to stuff up pick 3.
So they shouldn't have gone harder for Dan
No,
Houston.
I love what they've, and I said this from the start. That all it was about was we're going to the draft. We're going to the draft. You go, okay, we're going to the draft. Now they've worked their way to pick 3. Well, like you may get the next Chris Judd at pick 3. That's the sort of level pick 3 is. They're the sort of names, Petrarca and these types of players that go at pick 3.
Will it help Michael Voss next year?
I think they're okay though. I think they're provided they're healthy. I still think they're going to be a pretty tough side to beat. So at pick 3, you're more likely to have someone come in and impact pretty soon, like like a Will Ashcroft type or a Horn Francis type, or those high end elite juniors that are ready to go are more likely to help you. Not in a significant way, but they'll be a nice addition, hopefully, to the midfield. So I just love Carlton for me as it's shaping. Win the trade period along with Richmond.
If they're healthy is a big thing. Actually, Jacob Wiedering said yesterday on Waitley with me that Rob Innes, the new head of high performance, had called him on the Monday after the grand final. Now, he was in charge of Sydney's, fitness regime and straight away thinking about what is next. So Rob Innes is a big recruit for Carlton as much as anything. If I was the West Coast Eagles, I'd be locking all doors at the Mineral Resources Park with a deadbolt, possibly armed security hide as well to protect themselves from their army of supporters. Are the Eagles being fleeced in this trade period? Like they got burnt on the Barras deal with Hawthorn on Friday. 14 gone amongst that offer, off the table. Now they're in talks to get 14 back off Carlton and 12 by giving up pick 3 in what we hear is, and what Shifter just told us is a generational draft. So the play is they give up pick 3 and they get 12, Baker and Owies. John has got Matt Clark in the gun, the new list boss over there. Then there's this text. West Coast are butchering this trade period.
When you watch like those Discovery channels or the David Attenborough shows, and you've got like a big carcass, like a big wildebeest just dead, and every animal known to man is coming and just picking it off. So you start with the lions, like the lions get first go, and they get all the good stuff. Like they take all the meat off the the backside. And then after that happens, the hyenas come in and they take the scraps. And then after the hyenas come, then sort of all the birds start flying and they take the scraps of the scrap. This is what's happening. The Eagles are the wildebeest on the ground, and every other club, 17, they're just picking them up. I'm trying to work out what I'm missing here because
So Carlton are the vultures?
Yep. Baker could have gone to them for free if they just had a slight hard edge and they were a bit, they were prepared to be a bit ruthless about it and not make a few friends. But this is the state the club's in, that they don't need to be making friends. They need to rebuild the footy. They could have got him for free. They could have got a better deal for pick 3 if they thought that they could get the player that they thought. But pick 3 for Baker, Owies and 12... If you're going to trade pick 3, I would think you would want a pick still in the top 10, around 7, and then something, maybe 7 and 13, just if you're going to say what is fair. That's what you're doing. And then you're getting Baker. So you split the pick, which is fine. You get 2 players in. You get Baker for free. You get Owies for a pick in the 50s. And it's like, what are they doing? And what are we missing here?
Stuart, if the Eagles do this trade, heads should roll. Why are we acting like Liam Baker is worth doing this? He's out of contract, never been All-Australian. Eagles miss out on a top mid to pair with Harley. The whole world thinks this trade stinks, except the people making the decisions at the Eagles. Harley should be looking for a trade based on this club management.
Don't get me wrong. Like Baker's a good footballer, like really, really good footballer. But he's not a footballer that's worthy of trading at pick 3. Like pick 3, premierships are built for players at the draft inside sort of top 6, and they're trading out to 12 and getting Baker and Owies. I don't know. If I'm missing something, let me know, but I don't think we are.
All right, Nathan's in Craigieburn on the Eagles. Hi, Nath.
Good morning, guys. It's just talking about the Eagles pick 3. A friend came up with a mega trade. Just wanted to share it and see what you think about it. It helps a lot of teams unlock a lot of picks that they need.
The problem is, I think the ship sailed though, hasn't it? I think 3's gone. It's happening. It's too late.
Yeah, but instead of getting ripped off, what they can do is St Kilda would be getting pick 3, 13 and 63, but they'll have to give out pick 8, St Kilda's first round and second round next year. Gold Coast will have to give up.
Yeah. Sorry, Nathan. It's never too late. It's never too late. I mean, Port Adelaide just showed us that. But Nathan, Hang on the line. I'll flick you the Illuminate Lining Starter Pack,
Nathan's
$200
put all
worth.
his time into coming up with this pick swap that
Yeah,
works for
I know.
everyone, that he's fairer, but unfortunately it's done. All the big heavy hitters are saying it's about to be announced.
This could happen, and if it does, Stephen Bradbury might be the number one ticket holder at Arden Street, because imagine this for a right match in North Melbourne. At the end of all of this, could end up with Houston falling in their lap. Parker gets done. Daniel gets done. Darling came early. That's a right match for North Melbourne, Stephen Bradbury style,
Yeah.
if it is to play.
I've seen a few memes going around the place with the North Melbourne logo on Stephen Bradbury's face at the Olympics. If they do all of that with the right match, how many games do they win next year? What's the expectation for North when you clearly go? We're recruiting to be better instantly, and all those moves that you've just outlined improve them instantly. All of them. Parker does. I don't think Darling does, but they would suggest that he does. Caleb Daniels certainly does. Gives him some flexibility with McKercher. Play him more on ball. I really like him. And then Houston so you got two genuine All-Australian half-backs coming in. Gives you a lot of flexibility.
Yep.
What is it? 8 wins?
So it's 3 wins this year.
Is it 9?
I'd reckon 7 or 8. 7 to 9
I think it's 8.
would be acceptable.
Yeah, because I think 3's unders. Like that should have been 6 this year, so they underachieved. So I don't think it's a stretch to say that you should win 8, and then the following year play finals. That's what I would be suggesting. But North fans, if you pull those 4 off, what's the expectation for win-loss next year?
All right, so give us one of your observations before we get to Jeremy and Mount Gambier that you came up with at midnight last night.
This one isn't new, but it staggers me how soft Melbourne have been with Clayton Oliver. Like this was a moment in time for them to make a genuine statement about rebuilding the football club and taking a harder approach with Clayton Oliver and trading him out. I'm really shocked.
Trade him for peanuts?
Yeah.
Peanuts.
Well, not peanuts. You're trading him to give you a lot more flexibility with what you can do with your salary cap, so that next year you sort the mess out and it becomes an attractive place for the huge crop of free agents, which you get for nothing. So
you let him go. You have to pay some of his wage too, and you're only accepting a future first from one of the best clubs in the game.
I don't think you take a bit more of a harder line on his wage, but I think you want to get that 1.3 off your books so you can load up and replace Clayton Oliver with someone who wants to be there and a genuine free agent who you'll get for free in terms of a trade. So essentially, you don't get much back for Clayton Oliver in terms of a draft pick, but you're hoping to get Luke Davies-Uniacke in on his money for free anyway. So you've exchanged Clayton Oliver and the mess that comes with him.
What if Geelong are refusing? What if Geelong are refusing to stump up full freight for him? Money-wise?
How hard have they played this? I just don't feel like they've been on the same line and the same page as each other at the football club. There needed to be a consensus view that the best thing for this football club is to get rid of this player so that we do not become a circus anymore. The club's a circus. It will continue to be a circus whilst Clayton Oliver is there. And this is a missed opportunity. And look, something may happen in 2 days' time. I doubt that it will, but I think it's a huge missed opportunity for the Melbourne Footy Club.
Jeremy's in Mount Gambier. Jeremy, the Weagles.
Yeah, how you going? I'm not happy with what they're doing with pick 3, so I thought I'd come up with an idea that's a bit more aggressive. I think they should take Tom Barras and their future first-round pick, give it to North Melbourne for pick 2. North Melbourne then on-trade their future first and West Coast future first for Dan Houston. West Coast take pick 3 and give it to Richmond for pick 6, Liam Baker, and pick 23. What do you reckon?
Oh, that's a bit of work's gone into that from Jezza. It's hard without having it drawn up in front of me, Jeremy. It's hard to give you an accurate assessment of what we think. But I like the lateral thinking.
Yeah, but
involve another club.
I think the ship's just sailed. I think this is happening. So, and we'll see if the Eagles do some. There's still time for them to do some other things, of course.
Yep.
With a couple of days to go, but it feels like this 3's gone. And then we'll see where it lands with Barras and things like that and what other moves that they can make.
Yep. Morning, guys. Houston will get to the Pies. The deals always get done. He won't be going to North, and Kane won't be happy because Houston will be in the real bar stripes. Some tough talking there.
Not sure how, though. If they've said no to this, what else do Collingwood have? It's not as if Braden Maynard's up for grabs or they're going to find another pick. Like, all their picks are gone. They didn't have any picks to start with. So I'm just not sure the offer can be improved. And if Port Adelaide have said no now, unless it's a change of heart at the end. They don't really need to change heart because Houston can go back. He's not out of contract, so it's not like Bailey Smith. So I just don't know what Collingwood can do if the first deal didn't satisfy Port.